So this is Wayne Sawchuk here, and I'm on expedition in the Muskoka. We have 23 horses, 9 people, and the good dog Snow. We are now 3 weeks out of Mayfield, which is our home base, and we will be heading out to the highway. We'll get there in just under a week. And as you can see, we've got some gorgeous fall weather here in the Muskoka right now. This is September 15th, 2020. We're on the Chiska River, and I thought it would be appropriate if I read a little piece out of my new book, Crossing the Divide, Discovering a Wilderness Ethic in Canada's Northern Rockies. And I think it's appropriate that I read this piece here because those are the mountains over there where we dealt with poor caribou cow number 4. "All right, get out," said Zonk the pilot, "but be careful. Step out slowly and don't rock the boat." I took off my earphones and opened the door. Although the skid was in contact with the mountain, the helicopter was still flying, hovering under power. The machine shook with the rotor blast, and the air was a roaring blur of noise and wind. We were balancing on a single point of one skid, angled into the mountainside, leaving an open gap of a foot or two that I'd have to step over. As I prepared to dismount, I looked down through the gap. The slope plunged away in a nerve-wracking series of cliffs and drops. And if you look across the valley there, it's up in the... This occurred about mid-level on that snow, on that highest mountain there, the nearest mountain. As I prepared to dismount, I looked down through the gap. The slope plunged away in a nerve-wracking series of cliffs and drops. No time to dither. I climbed onto the skid, took a long step over empty air, setting one foot onto the rocks, and then carefully shifted my weight to the ground. No jarring the machine. I lay down immediately, hugging the ground and protecting my camera from flying debris as the helicopter peeled away from the mountainside. As the wind and noise subsided, I composed myself and turned my attention to poor caribou cow number 4. It appeared she had fallen down the hillside, the force of the impact expelling the calf, but too late for either mother or offspring. Her legs were pointing upslope, and she was stiff and cold. She'd been lying in this position all night. I took a series of photographs of the cow. Fortunately, the radio collar was loose enough to slip over the cow's head. I hadn't been looking forward to beheading her with the 4-inch blade of my Leatherman. When I was done, I waved the helicopter in, crouching on the moss amid the wind and whirling debris. When the skid touched the rocks, I got in carefully, stepping across the chasm and onto the skid as fast as possible. In moments, we were back down on the riverbank. "Good job," says Jill. "Did you get the collar and the tooth?" "Oh, the collar, yes. The tooth, no." In my excitement, I had completely forgotten. "It's okay. We'll get the age from our capture records." I was glad about that. I felt foolish for having forgotten. As we took off, heading back to base, I thought about the research project and the effect it must have on the animals. The sound and fury had been overwhelming as the chopper approached, and I was well aware that neither the machine nor the humans involved meant me any harm. But to an animal, the experience of being net-gunned, sampled, and collared must be absolutely terrifying. I pressed the button on the intercom. "What do you think, Jill? Do you think collaring and monitoring have any harmful effects on these animals?" There was a moment of silence in the headset as she considered her answer. "Well, it can't be a pleasant experience for them," she said. "I think we should consider all alternatives when we're designing a research project and pick the least intrusive method that would give us the information we want. Trouble is, in a project like this, in an area this big, with an animal that uses the whole landscape, we don't have many alternatives to this kind of collaring if we want to answer even the most basic questions about the species." That sounded right to me, as long as we were pretty sure we needed the information before subjecting any animal to the trauma of helicopter collaring and monitoring. Caribou in particular live close to the edge of survival, relying on spreading themselves unpredictably across the landscape to avoid predators. Each small change to a caribou's environment, one that improves access for wolves, say, helps push them closer to the brink. And in the north today, there are a lot of new roads. Caribou numbers are also influenced by the availability of food, snow depth, the number of moose and elk on their range, and hunting pressure. And that doesn't consider wild cards such as large forest fires or the effects of climate change. All these factors make for a chaotic and thus inherently unpredictable system. And it's a large system. As we can see today, it's a hot day in September, this time of year, and the cottonwoods are letting loose all of their seeds. Away they go. What a gorgeous day. How lucky. Thank you for listening.